Cooking and cleaning. Laundry, cat hair. Celia came in late, so we don't pay her. She just happened to get back from San Antonio and came in.
Well, what we do there on number 5 is I give it up there. Cool, furniture stuff, and get,
I really did think came
Brad
over.
and mine, this is part of cool. And we'll have a public hearing and then city council discussion for, and then put that separate council discussions.
Move chairs around, whatever.
Figure out where you need it. Try to limit the discussion at 5, just be more information.
He bought this property around Sandwich. The only trailer that he bought on top of it. Somebody squatted on it. And there's a meat under the trailer. And the city's turned water off. The guy comes in.
It is 6 o'clock. I will call this special city council meeting to order. If you'll rise, I'll lead us in communication call. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day that you've given us. Thank you for the many blessings you give us all. Please let us get some much needed rain for our area. Be with our city and our country through these difficult times. Help us tonight as we move through tonight's agenda to make wise decisions for this city. Lord, in Christ's name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for joining us tonight. At this time, we have public comments. If you want to speak during this time on any agenda items, there will be a public hearing later. Go up and sign up real quick what you need. But is there anybody who is registered for public comment?
Ms. Rucker did.
Do what?
Robin Rucker.
Okay. Ms. Rucker, if you would approach the podium, give your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
I don't have anything to say right now.
You don't want to talk during this? Okay. Anybody else for public comment, Janine?
No, sir.
Okay. At this time, we will have a presentation of preliminary plans for the new aquatic center and update. Mr. Grant, would you feel free?
Okay, as directed, I've got our engineer drawing up the plans for the aquatic center, and to kind of give you some brief history on how we got to this point. We had some meetings with the Parks Committee, and I appreciate them being able to meet a few times on this and advertised, and got a lot of input from the public on what amenities everybody would like to see, and this design just kind of looked like it was going to be a good design to meet those needs that people expressed wanting a swimming pool. And kind of briefly go over, I don't know what's easiest for everybody to look at. The phase 1 that we're looking at right now is this parking lot in front, a bathhouse, concession stand, with a covered awning right here, and then the swimming pool with a slide, tall slide there with two different slides on it. It has a deep end here for a diving board, big play area here for volleyball and all kinds of things, and then it's got what they call a lazy river over here. And this is a zero entry area of the pool that starts at a 0, of course, and goes down to about 38 inches, I think, right here. But that's the design that we're looking at. Some preliminary plans have been drawn up. You're welcome to, I can print you out a set of these things. It's in a lot of nuts and bolts details on how all this stuff works. And part of the project is a covered pool equipment house over here that gets into a lot of detail on how it works and stuff like that. This is not an unfamiliar thing to me. I've been one just like this at Vernon. Huge success, and came in under budget and worked really well. Part of what the decision the Parks Committee made was on the theme for the swimming pool. And the first thing they threw out was a sports theme, which kind of fits the bill. And right over here, you can pick up some copies of the different amenities. We plan on having 2 water features, one here and one here. And you really don't want to get too many there because it kind of eats into your just play area. And the 2 features that we're looking at is a kind of a slide with a football slide and slide through the football. And then the other one has multi-sport, soccer, baseball, basketball, and a fountain that sprays out and stuff like that. That's the general idea of what we're looking at. The slide is, I've never been to Muleshoe. This is twice as tall as the one at Muleshoe. And it's, one of the things we looked at is possibly having, kind of a maroon or red looking feature, but the problem with those is they fade so bad. I mean, if you've ever had a red logo on something, it's gone in no time. So one of the things we want to think about is durability. So this is kind of just a placeholder. Someday, we might consider a community building, but this doesn't have to have that for this all to be built. Takes up roughly half of that property, maybe a little more than half of the parking lot and everything. Takes up a little more than half of the 5 acres. And these signs, we'll be putting these up to replace the other signs. Have another one like this that has a thermometer on it, shows the fundraising. Kind of bad news on our grant. I don't know if we will stand a good chance of getting it or not, but they postponed that decision till November, which would be, you'll delay this a year to wait and see if we can get the grant. I requested a consideration from the Parks and Wildlife, and I don't expect that to do any good, but we've asked if there's any way we can go ahead and build this and still be in the running for grant money. That was the $750,000 grant that we applied for. Haven't had any luck getting that.
So Mitch, this is very similar to the pool you built in Vernon.
Exact same footage, really. By the layout, it's actually a little bit bigger. But
Can you tell the public about how it best utilizes the crowd and with the different areas in the pool to make use of?
yeah, the old style, was just a square swimming pool or rectangle, and the problem was, if you ever notice, is nobody ever in the deep end except somebody jumping in there. So a lot of lost space, and we actually, I hate to bring it back to Vernon, but we spent $30,000 for a study to get where we are right now. And that study, we took small group, focus groups around the community, young moms and elderly and everything, and we just put it all together, and this is the layout we came up with, because all areas of this pool, except just a small area, thin area, there could be occupied at all times. And we're looking at a daily load of over 600 people that could be in that pool. And it's amazing to me how when you fill up the whole pool, it's really can handle a lot of people. But that's kind of the way that's designed. Instead of having a separate kiddie pool, you get the 0 entry. And I don't know if you've had small kids, but most of the time the little kids want to be in the same pool as the big kids. That's just kind of what it is. But this worked well. The little kids can sit up there and the parents can be in a little deeper water and just kind of keep them corralled over in the shallow area. And this lazy river kind of kind of doubles for Roaring Rapids if you crank the pumps up pretty good. It's kind of fun, you know, anybody can go around fast or you can turn it down. There's a lot of pumps that make this thing work, and you have several pumps to keep the slides going and the circulation, of course, and then this feature, and then all the water features have to have plumbing to them to be able to work properly and spray and all that kind of stuff.
So this would have bathhouse and concession, bathrooms, a covered pavilion to get under the shade.
This covered pavilion would be an area out in the open where you can see the pool and still be in the shade. We're planning on putting a little bit of storage area down on this end of the building, and we're looking at, you know, storage slash maybe even a little small party area where if you wanted to have like an indoor birthday party or something like that, because these things are really popular in the summertime for the birthday parties. And typically you'll run a pool like this open at noon and run till 6, and then after that people will rent it, and usually every day is rented out, and all those rents and stuff put together kind of make up your income. We had a fee there of about $3.50 to $4 a head, which is a lot better than what Iran paid. If you've been over there, it's $20 a head. So it's affordable, so I would anticipate drawing people from a lot of people from our surrounding communities. And part of what you look at on these things is the additional revenue from people coming to town and buying hamburgers and filling up gas. So these things, I mean, once you get them up and going and running everything, you're looking at probably break even to maybe $10,000 to $20,000 a year negative as an amenity to have this. I mean, that's just kind of the way it works. You know, swimming pools are not big money makers. They're break even at best. In our budget coming up, we're proposing a very conservative number of about $37,000 to the negative, and that's in our budget just as a conservative number. I mean, you know, if we lose that money every year, I think that's something we're not doing something right. So. She got a little money from swimming pool, from parties, from concessions. And this concession building hasn't been engineered yet, and that's the part I need to get started on with our engineer. I'm getting a quote to be looking at that contract at this next meeting. And shouldn't be too tough, because I'm planning on using the same floor plan. It's a good floor plan where the same person can take admission, sell concession stand stuff, and also kind of watch the pool a little bit. Kind of a design to use less guards and kind of cut your costs down a little bit, so it's not such a burden on the cost to get in. Any questions on the layout there?
Is there a lifeguard station anywhere?
Oh yeah, they're just not shown here. You have to really have them, you know.
Yeah.
One of the challenges is this lazy river, because you have to have guards in spots where they can see the bottom of the pool everywhere. So this is a little bit of a challenge here, but generally they'll have one, gotta have one up here, one down here, there. Usually they'll leave one over there. You're gonna be a free range when you wash them. There's some pretty good guidance from our insurance company and stuff on these swimming pools.
How deep is the deepest part of that niche with it?
It'll be about 11 and a half, right at the spot where this diving board goes down. And it's a 1 meter.
The river is going to probably be a little over 3 feet, maybe 4.
Yeah, the river, right here and right here will all be the same depth. It's about, I think it's just like about right here, whatever that is, about 42, 43 inches.
Does it accommodate swimming laps?
Yeah, the laps, I mean, that's kind of an option, we decided not to, last one I did, but the laps could be right in here, this is kind of
Or the other.
a length for laps.
With the design, we've tried to make it scalable, so you'll notice there's a lot of room off of the west side, which is the left of that map, and the south. There was additional plans in the beginning to have a community center and then a separate lap pool that would be keyed entry, open up year-round, but, you know, that's discussions for the future.
But just to answer your question, I'm sorry, Robert, but that's, that would be like a separate, you know, several lanes you want for swimming meets and stuff like that, and we don't, you know, you really couldn't do that here.
What about
You could do the lengths.
Sure.
You know, the long part, that was kind of the whole idea behind this. We actually had an Olympic swimmer that helped us design the last swimming pool, and that was a consistent thing that she had on there, was the length of that piece right there, so that would meet a Olympic size swimming pool there. Or I mean, at least part of it.
I was gonna ask as well, what about seasonality to it with, is it just gonna be a summer thing, or is there gonna be some things that are gonna be
Yes,
amenable to
it's a
be
summer thing.
just straight on
It's
just summer?
just summer. I mean, a lot of cities have tried this, Tampa, I know, and a few others, and we tried it. And when school starts, swimming is just not popular. I mean, there's just, you can open it, set it up, but you get 1 or 2 people there.
What about the schools using it for teaching swimming in gym class?
I think that's a great idea, and that's kind of one of the reasons that you look at opening later on in the day. Well, number one, a lot of people don't like to come swimming at 9 o'clock in the morning, that are just for fun, but what this allows, opening at a later time, allows people to like give swim classes and stuff like that, and the school could do, you know, swimming classes for little kids and stuff. It just works out really good for that right there.
The road on there, is that already an existing road, or is that something that's gonna need to be built and included in the price?
What road?
The road in between the swimming pool and the church?
That road's already there. Oh, no, you mean this road over here? This road's already there, but this is a future parking lot. It's not included in this plan. See a line right here.
This
This
road
is
right
future.
here?
That's
Oh, this is
Phelps.
Phelps Avenue?
Yeah, we already got Phelps.
Okay. I'm looking at it backwards then.
And then down at the bottom is the,
That's Prosperity Bank down there.
Yeah.
That's just existing road there.
Okay.
You're upside down.
Yeah.
That's the church.
Well, it reads this way. But if you turn it, if we laid it on the floor, it would point that way.
no,
If we laid it on the floor, it would be like that. But this is fine. North, south, east, west. When you look at it.
How are you protect it during off-season?
Well, most places leave the water in the pool. It's better for your plaster. Keeps it better and circulated every now and then, and, you know, and winterize different things and
and it's, the
circulated just to kind
fence
of
will be
keep
high
it.
enough to keep kids out.
Typically, we'll put in I think it's like a 7 or 8 foot fence, and it's what we're looking at is the black coated chain link. It's not.
How are you keep it protected from graffiti and?
We won't. We'll just have to clean it up when we get graffiti. I mean, I wish I knew how to stop that. We'll have a camera system, so that should help us kind of catch it.
So when we have a camera system to keep
Yeah.
it?
We'll be able to at least maybe help
You
catch
probably
it.
want the security camera to help keep an eye on the kids playing out there.
Well, it's a give and take thing, you know, with
Yeah.
the cameras, you know. You in a public place, it's no problem having a camera. And, you know, bottom line is, if we do something wrong, get somebody hurt, yeah, we need to have it on film. And what happens a lot of times is people, you know, get hurt washing around or something like that, and we have the evidence showing that they
You
were.
know what I mean?
So, yeah, it'll be there. nowadays they have, where you can look at them on your phone and kind of see what's going on, so.
Mitch, if that's all on the pool, do you want to talk about finances now, or?
Well, we have an estimate, you'll have one in front of you there, sitting down. We'll look at it. It's, in my opinion, this estimate looks really on the high side to me. They've got everything figured in there, and I know there's a lot of things that could be, not just grants to it, but a lot of things that are really overstated with this stuff. But we've got a number of 3.9 million to do that project right there.
That's all phase one?
That's just phase one, to cover everything but the community center. And, I'm not about to question what the engineers start out saying, but I do feel like this is way overstated. And it's really hard to know exactly what it's going to cost until you bid it out and you get contractors' actual numbers for what they can build it for.
And in your past experience by doing the bathhouse separate, it's not one contractor, so in the past you managed this and helped beat down construction costs.
It saved me a lot of money doing it as separate projects when we did the one in Vernon, but in this particular case, I already have the design that saved a lot of money on engineering and stuff. So it did save a lot of money on that project. After looking at it, kind of analyzing, I've already got the plans. So it's a matter of them just changing them up a little bit to get it to work. So I think the savings is there, and without splitting it up now. I mean, originally, yeah, but now a couple of things have happened. One of the major contractors I know, the one I use, one Mulch used, the one a lot of them use is called Atlanta, and they've actually taken on construction now and not just swimming pool construction. So, I mean, it kind of opens up an avenue for that. But that's a very good point. Early on, I thought there was some savings there, but I think there still would be quite a bit of savings beyond what number we have here for the bathhouse. But I think we can get those savings and not have to split it out with a different contract.
What do you think? No, I'm not even going to ask you that. That's not fair. Once somebody bids, that's when the true number comes up.
That's the only way to know. And we can talk about that in a minute when we get Brad on the line. Anybody have any more questions?
How is this not going to bankrupt the city?
We'll have more of that in a minute.
We're fixing to get into kind of part two of this. Part one was just to talk about the swimming pool and the plans and stuff. Part two, we'll have our bond counsel online here that's going to answer some questions and we can talk to them.
And we'll have a public comment period where if any of you are for or against, or even have more questions you've thought of after Brad talks to us, be able to address those.
Anybody else have anything for right now? Cool. Get that on.
We're still on agenda number 5, and this time we're calling Brad Ames to our bond.
Hi, this is Brad Ames.
Hey, Brad. You see why you're not on the,
Hi.
hello? Say something, Brad.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I think. Can everybody kind of hear that?
Yeah.
Make sure it's all the way up.
That, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. we're social distancing and still trying to kind of hear.
Great, well, I'll try and speak up loudly then. You want me to take it away, just work through my presentation, or do you have an intro or anything?
I'll introduce you. Brad Ace is our bond counsel with Stiefel. And it used to be George K. Baum and Associates. They worked with us on a lot of different bond issues. And Brad, what I've done is I've kind of given them a rundown on swimming pool design and kind of where we are right now on that, and told them the total amount of the estimate for construction of phase one that we've been looking at. And I guess the big question in the room was, how's this not going to break up the city? So we're kind of up to that point now to kind of talk about money, and we've got you might just tell us to switch slides. I don't know if people can see the TV screen or not, but I've got some handouts over there if anybody wants to follow along with the analysis that Steve has prepared for us. Brad?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor and City Council, members of the public there in City of Littlefield. Thank you for having me. This is Brad Ace with Stiefel Nicholas. I serve as bond advisor and municipal advisor for the city. And as Mitch said, we help the city find financing resources and help manage your tax rate so that it's steady each year, and keep an eye on the bond markets and capital markets for you. And so Mr. Grant asked me to take a look and evaluate your current bond portfolio or debt portfolio to see what kind of capacity might be available to accomplish this project that you all are considering, and to do it within your tax rate without raising those taxes. And so that was the task I was charged with, and we have found an option that can maintain that tax rate, and I'll walk you through that here now. I did want to start off, and I'm flipping here to the first slide now. I wanted to start off by giving you a little bit of background and an update on the market. That the capital markets have come back and really stabilized quite substantially. I'm sure some of you all have seen how well the stock market has done the last month or so. And along with that, we've seen a lot of stabilization and return in the debt markets as well, in the capital markets for public entities, the municipal markets. And so on this first slide, what I'd like to kind of highlight out of these is the bottom left-hand chart, and you'll see some light blue bar charts that kind of stay in a range. And then you see a dark blue line at the bottom, and that dark blue line is where interest rates are today. And then the bars are where interest rates have been over the last 10 years, and those are in different lengths of maturity. So that ranges from 1 year out to 30 years, depending on how long you borrow. But the takeaway from this is we're near the record lows and really at a low cost of borrowing right now, which has been good as a lot of communities are trying to spur some economic stimulus and get some projects going in their community. So I'm going to flip to the next slide, slide 2. This is some more information about the market and talking about the supply and demand. So, a big part of why we saw interest rates go up a couple of months ago was investors pulling their money and not wanting to invest in stock or bonds. They were being careful. They wanted to keep their money in cash until they could see what shook out and how it came about. But what this slide describes is really the amount of bonds and the amount of investor activity that has picked up here going back to late March. And what's been happening here the last few weeks, 4 weeks to be exact, is an inflow of money into institutional investors' hands. And so they're trying to put that money back to work. Maybe it's a mutual fund or an insurance company or even a commercial bank. But we're seeing a lot of demand for high-grade bonds. And so that means investment grade, like A or AA is higher. A lot of investors are really wanting to add those to their portfolio. So that's helping to drive down the interest rates too. On slide 3, there's a little bit of information here on the interest rate forecast. Basically, we have some historical information on the Fed movement. The Fed also has a hand in controlling what interest rates will be. They are the ones who determine the short-term lending rates between banks and others. And actually just some new information that came out here today was some Fed commentary that they're planning to hold the short-term interest rate at or near zero all the way into 2022. And so we saw the equity market, the stock market, recoup some of the losses it had earlier this morning. So we are in this low interest rate environment while the country tries to recover from the coronavirus and economic recession that occurred because of that. And so cheap money is to be had at this point. So that brings me to slide 4. And what this shows is a look around the state of Texas over the last month and a half of some of your peers, some of the other cities around the state, and really just wanted to show you how active a lot of the cities are and really moving forward with a lot of projects right now. You probably see some familiar names on there, whether it be bigger cities like Lubbock and Amarillo, or some smaller ones as well, like Kyle and Cotees and some others. So very active market. Everybody's having strong results, locking in interest rates. About 20 to 30-year debt interest rates are in the 3 to 4% range right now. So definitely some opportunity there, which helps keep down your costs and helps you keep your tax rate the same. So on slide 5 now, I give a little bit of historical information on the city of Littlefield and your tax base and your historical debt tax rate. And that's represented up top. In the middle, there's a column that says I and S rate that stands for interest and sinking. And that is the portion of your total tax rate that goes to repay your financing for your capital project. And so historically, you've been right at 7 or 8 cents, and we try and help you maintain that as steady as possible so that your taxpayers and citizens can know what to expect when tax time comes. You have had some growth in your tax base or your assessed valuation here over the last 5 years, going back to 2016. You've had an average of about 3% growth. So that's kind of the lay of the land and what I mentioned the city and what we try and keep in control and help manage as much as we can on your behalf. And let's take a look at slide 6. And these are your two bonds that you have remaining. So up top, you have one that was sold in 2016. That was a refinancing of some old bonds where you're able to finance some improvements and items over at the jail facility. And then back in 2006, that's the Texas Water Development Board loan that you use for some water projects. So those are the two. And then down below in the table shows the debt service for each on an annual basis, so how much you have to pay each year. Now, the city has been pretty aggressive in using any excess revenues to pay off some of your debt early. And in fact, last year, y'all paid off some bonds early and were able to save $1.3 million by doing it. By paying it early, you didn't have to pay the interest on that. So really good savings and really good financial management there to be able to take advantage of that. And there's even an opportunity coming up where the city's evaluating and considering paying off some more bonds early. And that's what I've circled there in the green on the left-hand side of that bottom chart. So together, though, all of these pieces of debt, we structure these to where they come out to a level payment to where we can maintain your tax rate at or about that 8%. Okay, so moving on to slide 7. So what we were asked to do is perform an analysis to see if we could get you approximately $4 million or less. We went to the high end just to see if, how this would affect your tax rate. And on the left-hand side, we've got a bond sale in the amount of about $3.4 million, but investors actually would pay you a premium for that just because of a bit of the way that interest rates and yields work out. They pay a premium up front to get paid a little less on the tail end. But that brings you to about $4,092,000 of proceeds or total sources that allows you to pay for your project up front. And by doing that, the results I've listed out here on the top right-hand side. So the approximate cost of capital right there in the middle, they all in TIC, that stands for true interest cost. We're estimating at this point in time it's about a 2.54% in order to lock this in and go ahead and get your construction funds for this project. And by doing that, it can be repaid in 15 years or less and keep your tax rate at 8.6%. So that same tax rate that you've kept here over the last several years. And part of this, though, equation is paying off some of those bonds early that we talked about on the previous slide, which frees up quite a bit of your revenues that you've used historically, and using a portion of those, not all of it, but a portion of that on the new project. So you were paying about $650,000 on those 2016 bonds each year. Those would be paid off, and you'd use about $250,000 of that going forward, and then the remainder is with that 8.6 property tax rate. So this can be accomplished again on a fairly short, low-cost type structure right now to maintain at or less of a similar payment that you've had here historically. I have a little more detail just on the map behind that in the back. I'm not going to go through each portion of slide 8, but I'd like to point you to slide 9 and briefly just talk about the process few things. You have to pass notice of intent will be the first. And what that says is from city council, it says we're evaluating a project for the aquatic center and approximately $4 million or whatever the number becomes. And we invite the public to come give comment on this project. So you have to, after you pass that notice of intent, you put out a publication in the newspaper, a couple publications over consecutive weeks, and there's a 45-day period where people get to comment. After that, there is a bond sale, should the city still want to proceed, where you would lock in rates. And based on this schedule, you'd be able to do that in late August, so you're talking over 2 months away before you lock those in and decide to move forward with the project. And then about a month later, you would receive your funding. Okay, I know I laid out quite a bit of info there. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any of the council have questions for Brad? If so, please direct him at Mitch and he can relay them to Brad. Brad, when would the first payment be due for the pool, provided we pay off the prison next March, February, and when's the first payment of this new bond due?
There's some flexibility in that first payment, but your current payment dates are February 15th. And so we're looking at setting up your first payment on this one, the proposed structure on February 15th of 22. First principal, there'd be interest before that, sir.
Any other questions for Brad?
The amount that you gave was $4 million plus. We don't have to get the $4 million plus, but that's what's allowed for us to borrow. Is that correct?
We wanted to, yes, sir, we wanted to show a little bit of a high number just to show you that you can still keep your tax rate the same at $4 million. We just rounded it up. As you refine your needs, we would lower this amount before the bond sale to make sure you're borrowing an amount that matches your project size.
During your discussion, during the discussion, you didn't mention anything about having a bond election. Only talked about having public comments in regards to this. What are the laws in relation to receiving a bond of this nature?
Brad, I don't know if you heard that or not. Councilman Warren asked about any kind of legal requirement for an election for this bond of this nature.
Sure, I can speak broadly to it. I'm not without putting myself as paint myself as a lawyer, but the cities within the state of Texas have the option to issue certificates of obligation that provide for city services and projects, and in lieu of the election, it provides that comment period and publication notice over that 45-day window. So it is not required to go to an election using the certificate of obligation. Mr. Reed Bureau is McCall Parker's bond counsel law firm. Has been working with us to help prepare and will be available to answer additional questions if we want to get that to him via email or at your regularly scheduled council meeting coming up here in a week or so.
other questions for Brad?
So it looks like he's proposing no election then?
This has no election in it, that is an
The way they
option.
laid it out.
It's an option for us.
And when the bond council is supposed to be, we'll have some agenda items at a regular meeting, the 23rd. And the bond council will be, I think, on that. This is what Mitch said, to answer more questions like that. But you have the opportunity to do a certificate of obligation where the council votes on it, or the other one is called, I believe, a general obligation, where the citizens vote on it. Brad, anything else that you want to add?
No, sir, that's it. Just want to point out you all done a good job to get your financial house in order. I've talked to a couple of lenders, and there's some people eager to help out and give you some strong bids. So we'll stand ready and be available to answer more questions at the next meeting.
Thank you, Brad.
Yes, sir. Good night.
Paul and Billy.
Before we go to the public hearing on this, the city paid $3.5 million early on a principal payment for the prison, which when those were issued in 2008 or 16, they were refinanced to get a lower interest rate, saved the city several $1 million at that time. The outstanding value of those was $8,085,000. We made a $3.5 million principal payment last year, leaving a balance of $2.4 million on the prison bond. The only other bond is a 2006 water sewer bond for the Highway 84 sewer project, with the original amount of $1.9 million, an outstanding amount of $815,000 that's due to be paid off in 2027. So at this point, those are the only two debt items the city of Littlefield has. So with that prison debt, which has been the $650,000 to $700,000 a year payment, that will be paid off early. Andrew, speak to this. Is your plan still February on the normal payment?
Yes, we are
Like that.
much in line and exceeding expectations on where we should be.
The plan is to pay the prison off next year, which is, will be 9 years early from what it was originally done, save the city millions and millions of dollars in interest. That's how this cash flow comes up. So if you have particular questions on that. Mitch, anything else to add for the presentation of the plans?
No, sir.
At this time, we will go to agenda item 6, public hearing regarding the Aquatic Center. If you have, I will now close this special city council meeting and open a public hearing regarding a discussion about the Aquatic Center. If you have a comment or questions want to engage with us, please approach the podium, give your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Ms. Rucker is now when you'd like to speak.
Well, I would just like to say that I'm not sure what the interest rate on our bonds are right now, but I do know that this proposed 2.54% interest rate is a very good interest rate. I feel like the interest rate that we're paying right now is probably higher than that on the bonds that we currently have. I think it would be a good savings for us to pay off early and, take debt at a lower interest rate. Furthermore, I think that this is would be a good investment for the city. I think would be a good investment for the youth of our city and for we don't have anything, right now that families and children and whatever can do for entertainment, really. I think it would help some families have some good family time, a good thing for them to be able to do, help keep some kids out of trouble maybe. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
To answer your question on interest rate, our interest rate on the 2016 series bond is 3.6%. Is that correct, Andrew?
On the
Prison bond? Yes. And the water sewer bonds are?
It's a variable that started at 3.4 and it creeps up to 3.8 over the course of the bond.
So in the threes, so it's significant savings on it. And we're also up with this, what Brad had mentioned was a rating review. So several years back, we went into triple B status. Our audits and everything is awesome, and it's very possible. You don't generally get to jump multiple grades, but we could possibly, for sure, go up maybe 1 or 2 grades if doing this, which helps us on lots of things in the future. So
And this would be a fixed interest rate.
it's fixed, yeah. For 15 years paid.
Yeah.
Any more public comments, questions?
Renee Dempsey. When we first started this, we started with $750,000 to do this project. Then we went to 1.4 million. Now we're at 4 million? Are you guys kidding me? That's unreal. I don't even know what to say to you guys.
To answer your question, when this first was brought up 3 years ago with the $750,000 number, a group of citizens had got together and we went out and talked to some pool builders and got some estimates at that time, and they looked at it as a private citizen buying it and building it. The pool could have been built in that range. With what was not disclosed was that with the city and all the things that cities have to do with engineering, engineering has been several $100,000 so far, hasn't it?
The current contract is
160. The additional engineering, the additional weight of everything with public infrastructure, the bonding, the financing of this has exorbitant fees. There's fees to the bond counsel and to the bond advisors. With the additional engineering and the cost of it, the slide's $300 and something thousand. So it was a little preemptive when it first came up, but it was to get a discussion started, and there was some private individuals that were trying to solve a problem and do it the best they could. This is engineered by a company that does a lot of these, and this is the number. We think it's high, and Mitch and I have talked about this, and he's going to do his best if we move forward to try to be as efficient, and you've done this in the last 5 years or so to try to save as much money as possible. But the fact of the matter is anything for public government costs twice as much as it does for private citizens.
But the amount of 4 million is, it's just it's an amount to keep our tax rate where the tax rate doesn't go up. That's not saying we're going to borrow for $4 million.
Correct.
No, they plan on doing 4 million.
The projected cost from engineering estimates on the pool is $3,935,330 is the engineering estimate. The cost of financing is $92,000, $92,584. So it will be, if the engineers are correct, and it's not be any money saved. They're always high. There's contingencies in here, big contingencies. They never underbid, they always overbid. So that's the upper end of this cost, and is $4 million, be a little over $4 million, $420,000.
Yeah, there's some value engineering will go into this, and one of the things we use when we're bidding out a project is we'll have additive and deductive alternates, so that when we bid this out, the city will be able to pick and choose some of the more pricey pieces of this thing and get it to the price we want. And but for right now, this is the engineer's estimate for everything that that was suggested and that we met on and agreed on the swimming pool layout and the design.
And this is going to only,
You need to approach the podium, please, with your name and address.
Carol Whitman, 407 Phelps. And if I heard you correctly, you said this was only going to bring in 20,000 negative
Well,
every year?
yeah, these are not money-making projects.
So if we're going negative, how is this gonna help fulfill the job?
Well, it's an amenity.
Well, yeah, it's an amenity, kids will be occupied for the summertime. But how's it gonna pay for itself if we're not making enough money to pay for it?
I think I'm gonna cross that, if I'm going to answer your question.
So the net operation cost of the pool is estimated at what?
The
yearly operation, $67,000 is what we're
$60,000 to
estimating.
$70,000 a year for operation and maintenance. What he's saying is that it could be a $20,000 to $30,000 loss on just operation. That's not counting paying it back. It is not a money-making deal. It's a quality life improvement that is, the citizens are going to have comments and let us know. And there's been lots of discussions over the last few years for and a few against for this deal. It's going to cost money. We're telling you we're to the point of being able to afford it. If you want to do it, it's not a money-making deal. I don't know if cities are in the business of making money, if that's their goal. But it is going to cost money. It's going to cost money to build it, and it's going to cost money to operate it, and it's going to be a net loss generally.
Even when we were renting the pool from the Crescent Park Hotel, it was a loss.
Yeah.
It's always never, ever money maker. It's
Yeah.
always a loss, no matter how a pool is run.
But it was.
Unless you charge your occupant $20 per entry, and then we can't do that because nobody can enter a pool. Like you said, water rampage. Nobody goes to water rampage every day throughout the month.
And that's the difference between the city-owned facility and the private-owned facility. They're private-owned is only for making money. And, you know, it's like the mayor said, this is basically going to be a quality of life type thing. It's going to be something that we can do and show.
Jim, let's push through the public hearing, and then we'll try to answer their questions.
Keith Logan, 1202 West 12th Street, that's where I live. I think that obviously we don't have no quality of life things right now. I think we have to do something. Yes, I'm obviously on the advisory committee. It did start at $700,000, but every year we wait, it goes up. Every meeting we had, we got with Mitch, we got with the committee, and it's going up every year. So we don't do it now, it's going to go up probably another $500 to $1 million next year. So if we don't want it, I'm for it. There's nothing to do for these kids. Obviously, I work in the high school. There's really nothing to do. I hear some people complain about not paying that the dollar park fund. It is what it is. I mean, I donate a little bit more. Not much. I'm not rich by no means, but I donate a little more. But my daughter uses the park. That's the only thing they have. It's not really the best park, but we have to have something for them to do. If we don't, people are going to move away. Professionals are going to move away. Our town's going to start dwindling. I'm not from here originally, but I mean, if I graduate college, I'm going to have a family. I'm looking for things I can do with my family. You can't do nothing really here with your family. That's just how I feel about it. If you don't do these things, it would be nice if it only cost $1 million, but that's just not reality. We had the golf course, that was privately funded, that went away. So we don't have nothing to do for these kids, for these families. I think you have to do something. If you don't, you're going to lose professionals. It's going to be hard for anybody to want to work at the hospital, work for the school system, or any of those jobs if you don't bring things that make professionals want to live here. That's just how I feel.
Anybody else want to speak to public comment before we move back into the meeting? This will be your last opportunity to ask us questions. If none, we will now close this public hearing regarding the Aquatic Center and reopen the special city council meeting. At this time, we will have a city council discussion regarding the Aquatic Center. You've heard the plans, you've heard the financing. If you have any questions for Mitch, we've been working on this for quite a while.
A couple items that I have I'd like to address is talked about the camera system, that's not in the quote. That's gonna cost a little bit more. And then, in the purchase agreement for the property from the First United Methodist Church, there was an agreement to extend sewer services to the building out there for the church. And I was wondering if that is included in the cost of this as well.
There's some money in there for off-site utilities. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get anywhere near that number, but there is some money in the estimate.
Well, looking at the project locations and everything, it doesn't look like there's any sewer lines that could potentially run even in that direction.
Yeah, we did some estimates. I got some engineers input on that and stuff, and part of this agreement was to provide a sewer, place to tie on the sewer for the Methodist Church. So, we've looked at that and talked to the engineers about that, and we're gonna roll that into this. It's got an 85,000 number in there. I can't see it being anywhere near that. But basically what we're looking at is a sewer extension in front of Prosperity Bank, down the front, up the side, and a 15-foot utility easement that was part of this property. And then they'll tie on there.
Does that go through that, does the easement go in the green area, or is that in that driveway area? How's that?
The easement runs up the north side of the property.
Okay.
Runs east and west there.
Okay.
Kind of, I guess you'd say right by that top parking place there.
Is that parking, I'm looking at the picture there, those two little outcroppings above the parking area, is that the building there?
I
can't
think
tell.
it may be part of the building, but that sewer line, we could have run like a 6-inch line and possibly gotten there. It was really close, but the distance is so far, it has to be so flat, we had to move up to an 8-inch line. And in order to do an 8-inch line, you really need to be a city project. It needs to be in an easement. So that's about the only option we had to get sewer to the, we looked at it coming from different directions, and this was the best. Plus, it would give us a good sewer line. And one of the things we're doing, see that sewer line runs around the Prosperity and then it goes off into a residential area. So one of the things we're doing in this project is there's a tank, basically a holding tank for the backwash. We have to backwash these filters regularly, and instead of dumping that huge backwash into the sewer, that's dumped into a big tank and then slowly let out through the sewer that runs into the residential area, so we don't overload it. So, we kind of planned ahead for handling that backwash from the sand filters that go along with the
Does that parking area up there on the north, does it butt up against the driveway right now for the church or not? I can't tell how that.
Well, that future parking lot, that's just kind of a placeholder. It doesn't really.
There would be a 15-inch
I mean, it's
utility
right
in the green area.
close to it, and I think originally there was some thought about, parking lot sharing there and stuff, but that's not something I'm really prepared to talk about. But the good thing about it is typically your church is not in session once you have dinner on the grounds while the pool's in operation. So, I think we've hunted that pretty good. I think we've got a pretty good concept of that.
Next thing I have to say is, I hate to be a naysayer and all this, it seems like I'm always going to bring up things that are negative, but my comment on this is that I've been in a situation before where we got a bond for that certificate of obligation, a rather large one, and we didn't take it for the citizens. Even though we all believe that that bond was something that the city needed, and they've been working on it for 15 years. They've been working on that detention center out there for 15 years. We thought it was a good idea to go get the COs without putting it before the public. We got it done. I only got one negative comment from one person when I was on city council back in 99 or 2000, whenever that was. So I thought it was going to be a great thing. Well, then come 20 years later now, got a little bit different opinion about it. And people have lots of bad thoughts about that idea. So my thought is that instead of just doing a CO, we do need to do a general obligation bond and have an election to have the citizens actually vote on this. To let, get the idea of
get the input from them. Because these public, comment sections, we have, 10 people here from the citizens out here? That's just not enough comment to make me feel confident that it's $4 million worth of input.
I agree.
Do you think we'll have more than 10 people even vote on
I would hope so.
I was originally in that camp, Mr. Warren, as well, because I was, let the citizens decide, vote on it, either move off the topic forever or move forward with it. Buddy and I have also visited about this, and Buddy can tell you more about his conversation with Millshoe. I have changed my thought. Originally, I thought the citizens needed to vote on it. I have changed my mind because there has been some participation over the years with the pool, but I also feel like that they have voted us into these offices to make wise and good decisions, and we have made lots of wise and good decisions over the years. And if this is something that we feel is good for the city and can financially handle it, that it's our duty to do that. And if they don't like it, they simply replace us. But I do feel like that is part of our responsibility. Buddy, if you can tell them, with voting, what you can end up with is citizens against citizens. You're going to have the old people against the pool. You're going to have the young moms for the pool. It can turn into kind of a possibly ugly situation where you have strong fors and strong againsts. But I think Buddy had visited quite a bit with Millshoe about their experience in that.
Then I say put it to the public and let them fight it out. I say that we should not, as 5 members of the council up here, obligate the city for that money. And I've been in this vote before for more money and should have put it out to the vote back then. And then let them fight it out. Have people for it, have people against it, and the people who get it, if they win or if it goes against it, they lose, then that's the way it is. Instead of obligating us, because whatever happens, 10 years down the road, we'll say, we had a vote, you showed up or you didn't show up, you got it or you didn't. Instead of going, oh, this council of 5 people voted for it, and we didn't have a say about it. Because that's exactly what happened in this city 20 years ago.
They do have to say they have a 45 days by statute to come and make their comments. No.
And that's exactly what they did back then too, but again.
But at that time, who would have voted against it? It was going to bring this many jobs, it's going to be great.
But the point is, you had it in a vote, and they actually had the opportunity, and if they didn't show up, it was their own damn fault. Same thing for an election for city council members. You get what you get because you either showed up or you didn't.
Here's what Millshoe said. They said if they had put it to vote, they'd never got the pool.
Well, then
that they
that's
have it,
fine.
everybody
That
needs
was up to the people.
it. Okay, but now that they have it, everybody goes to it.
And some of the people.
And
that
people
were
from out of
most
town go
against-
to it.
Some of the people that were most against Millshoes are now so thankful that, this was a really good idea. We didn't see the vision at the time, but they were some of the strongest opponents to the pool of Millshoes. After it was built and got operational, they came to the city management and said, this really turned out well. This is a good thing. And sometimes people can't see the forest for the trees and look ahead to what can be and what could be.
Also, there are other obligations that we need to take care of in the city. Our streets, our sewer, our water line. We have a 12-mile chunk of water line going from the Sand Hills. It's going to cost about $12 million to replace. It's been there for 75 years. I mean, if we don't have that water in place to fill the pool, it ain't going to do us any good.
But if the citizens vote for it anyway, we're still in the same boat.
That puts it out there for them to look at and vote on.
So
Instead
you
of
want
us making the decisions.
Putting the blame on somebody is what you're wanting to do.
We put it on the citizens because that's what we put. We don't want to put ourselves. I don't want to put myself out there. And obviously, I think the pool is a great idea. Good, it's great for the kids. No doubt about that. I mean, who complains about a pool other than the fact that it doesn't make any money? That's one of those things you just got to weigh in the city. I mean, that's why we opened up the Crescent Park Motel pool every year. It cost money to rent it, and then we had to maintain it. We didn't want to spend money on it because it wasn't ours. And then we're in this boat right now because we couldn't maintain that pool because it wasn't ours. But if we have a pool, we maintain it, we take care of it, it's going to be great for years to come. But I would have to vote against it because I don't want to obligate my citizens for that for the rest of their lives here. You know, I just have to say that, and because I've been in the same situation before, getting a bond for things that people say they want, and then it turns out they didn't, or because something went south. Because who knows how it's going to be?
The reality of it is, and I don't disagree with parts of what you're saying, is with a competent city manager and treasurer and city council members, you know, you're in this, you see the budget every year, you see the audit every year, you have a future capital improvement plans. You have obligated yourself to take the responsibility to try to educate yourself the best you can and to make the best decisions for the city. The problem is, on some issues like this, when you just ask the citizens, what do you think? Well, I heard we need to put a water line in. You're right, we do. There's lots of things, street repairs. There's going to be, I mean, your bond debt has gone down from $700,000 to $375,000 if you do this. There's still additional money. But sometimes you got to be very cautious as they don't submerge themselves in it enough to see the big picture of all the moving parts and taking care of this and taking care of that and making it all mesh together. I personally think Littlefield needs a win. I think we need something nice. I think we need to move forward past the prison days. I think we need to add things that add to this community to make it a place that people want to raise their kids and move to. I think it's a great location. You're going to see it from Highway 84, and our neighbors driving by are going to see it and want to stop and want to use it. One of the comments in some of the earlier hearings that we had was a person had got up during public hearing and made a comment, and he had bought a business several years ago and moved to Littlefield, and he said, first thing we did when we came to town is we drove around, looked for a pool, looked for the city pool. The next thing was look at schools, and the third thing was look for a house. But, you know, it's things like that that make you decide if you want to live here or not. And the problem is the price tag scares people, and the problem you take it for a vote, oh God, I've always heard Littlefield's broke, we can't do that, I vote no. When they've never attended a city council meeting, when they've never looked at a budget, when they've never looked at how these projects come together, it's just, oh, we can't have anything nice. And so, God, this is just stupid. And I vote no. And that's the risk you run when you take it to a vote. Because people will not take the time to educate themselves on the whole grand scheme of the issue. And that's what they place their trust in. If everything was done to, every decision was left up to, should we pave Phelps versus Hall this year? Hall's state highway, so that would never be an issue. Phelps versus Wayland, that's not another good one. If everything we did in the city had to come down to a public vote, that takes away the whole reason for this process and the way it's set up. And that they placed you here to make a decision, to look at all the facts, weigh the good, weigh the bad, and make decisions. And I believe that's what we're here to do.
Have you seen did you see these numbers before the meeting tonight?
I've been working on this for years.
So you saw this meeting before you saw these numbers before tonight's meeting?
I have.
See, this is the first time I saw these numbers tonight.
Well, and it's just a discussion tonight.
Well, I know. But see, part of the problem is some of this information we just got tonight. I had no other information other than we had a meeting set up for tonight's meeting at 6 o'clock.
Some of this just came in the last today, right? Next.
Then our policy should be, we don't get the information. We don't have a meeting until we have the information in hand, so we can look at it. If we want to make good decisions up here, and you expect us to make those good decisions, we need to have the proper information in front of us to be able to review the information, to be able to make a decision. I know we're not having any decisions
are being made
tonight. This is a discussion, but how can you discuss something without having the information in front of you?
That's the purpose of tonight's meeting, is to present the information.
Well, I'm learning this information at the same time our citizens are. So if you expect us to make a decision and have good discussion, we need to have this information as a policy for future reference. Any meeting we have, we need to have our stuff in front of us. Okay?
Will there be more meetings about this, Mitch, to move forward or not?
Yes.
Okay.
And it doesn't just include the city pool, it includes all other city council meetings. We've had this discussion many times before.
I have a question. Will we have its own maintenance man there, or is that going to just be a city worker, or how would that work?
Some of the bigger things would probably be kind of handled public works and stuff, but your staff that you hire will do the cleaning as they go. You know, like They'll shift out, one of the lifeguards will do a quick run through the bathroom, clean stuff, and then, you know, go out on rotation.
The reason I ask, our guys have enough strain as it is without a
I
pool.
know. Yeah, they're stretched pretty thin right now, and thankfully generally the pool will be cleaned in the morning with the staff before they start their shift, and they'll do the, you know, the skimmers and all that kind of stuff to clean it out, and each day before they crank it up. Now, it's not a huge burden on staff that's not connected with the pool, but you really need a good pool manager to oversee it and do the scheduling.
Also, I noticed that it says the pump area is gonna be open air. It's not gonna be in something like a building where it can be climate
Pump
controlled.
area. We have quite a bit of discussion on that, and I think probably that, you know, it'll be cordoned off from the rest of the pool, but it'll be open air to allow more
Because
flow.
Milshu said that's where they had their biggest problems. They didn't have a climate controlled pump area, and they had lots of freeze-ups when it was extremely cold.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, we want to design it where we can pretty much winterize it except for the minimum pumping requirement to kind of, in the wintertime, my understanding is that you do circulate it just a small amount just to keep the water in pretty good shape, but there's some of the stuff that will have to be winterized.
And the sunlight
We're
on
kind of
everything.
discussing that back and forth right now. I know the one over the grant had slats and openings like that
Yeah.
to allow some airflow. Overheating is your biggest problem with a lot of those
Yeah.
pumps.
So is it gonna have a cover on it, or?
Yeah, at the top.
It'll have a
At the
roof?
top, definitely, but
Okay.
what we're gonna do for the sides, kind of, I know Park Hill's got their ideas about wanting it to be kind of more open, but, you know, there'll be some areas that'll have to be enclosed, like the chlorine area and stuff, where you have it and stuff. But that's still kind of up in the air right now, on whether we want to completely close it with slats, or whether we want to just chain link everything. The newer design pumps are really quiet, so you don't have that huge noise like some pools have. And they're a variable pump, so you can set them at different speeds for optimal performance.
Well, I personally feel that this is a step in the right direction. I think it's something that we need. I think it's something that's long overdue. And as far as a certificate of obligation versus a general election over bonds, I think I agree with what the mayor said. I was on that train of thought also, just because of what you had said over the financing of the prison. But I also have come to understand that we are elected officials and from different districts and stuff. And I think it's also our obligation to let our constituents know what's going on, regardless if they're here tonight or not, and maybe just kind of send out a little, just a feeler on it and stuff. But we are representing the city, and we do need to be good stewards, but we also need to do stuff that's gonna, I think, increase our quality of living here, to also increase the reasons why people would want to live here. And again, you know, I think this is a step in the right direction. It could possibly be a springboard for private investors to come in to want to invest in the city. I mean, it's kind of like what Keith Logan had said. You know, I value what he said up here. You know, and we definitely need something to do for our kids to do. I mean, I've grown up here. I can remember when we had 2 swimming pools, we had a golf course, we had a movie theater, we had a bowling alley, and it would be great to go back to those days, but unfortunately we're not there, and maybe this could help get us back into the right direction. So that's kind of where I stand on it. I think we just need to bite the bullet and get it done, personally.
What did you determine the entry fee's gonna be?
No, I mean, I think probably in the range of $3 to $5 a head, probably, is generally kind of
These
a
monthly
good number,
passes,
you know.
You could buy
Yeah,
them.
and then that's one of the things about this thing is you could have kids there every day, that same kid every day. And, you know, I mean, it's pretty neat. And you kind of, if you have a pool that's geared toward little kids, has some things for them to do, then guess what? Mom's going to be there. And mom really does kind of help keep control over the clientele you've got in there. And it really does help a lot to have a lot of amenities for the really little kids.
What would be the age limit for, say, the youngest kid that could go without an adult?
Oh, I think probably 12 or 11, I think is kind of the going rate. But that's something we'd have a choice on, you know, what to run. And, you know, I mean, I appreciate your comments, Ben, on the, I mean, you got a difference of, you know, are you elected official, are you a statesman, or are you a voting by what your constituents, you know, tell you to vote at the time? And, you know, that's a choice, you know, on leadership, on how you're gonna handle things. And I just say this, we battle this all the time, you know, we do economic development, we hire people to do this, and we bring in the sales tax, and we throw money at these businesses, and we bring in and create jobs, and 300 probably new jobs since I've been here, 300 new jobs, and they live somewhere else, and it stinks. And it's a bad deal when you create these jobs and this economy and they go live somewhere else. And the only reason they live somewhere else is we just don't have enough stuff to throw at them. And, you know, whether you have election or not, I mean, whatever y'all decide will be fine. But, I mean, my personal opinion is when elected officials are elected, I mean, I think they need to study the facts and be more informed from the people you represent. And the people you represent should have a say if they're informed, and you should listen to them, what they say. But it comes time when you just have to step up as an elected official and be a statesman and say, I've studied this thing and I feel like my constituency would want me to go this way on this. And they don't all have the time to spend hours and hours on this, studying this stuff and discussing this.
Unfortunately, in my experience is that sometimes, even if I study all the information I have in front of me, there has been withheld information that should have been given to me, and I didn't know how to ask the question and get the information. So I'm hoping that all the information is in front of us and we are getting truthful and valid numbers, and everything is on the up and up with this. So I don't know. I'm always skeptical in government and about government, because
You've done public information requests on a stack of shit that's 2 foot tall. If your answers weren't in that, I mean, I don't know what to give you. You've asked, you've gotten everything, you have access to stuff. You've done discovery, you've done all kinds of stuff. So don't make it sound like you're being hoodwinked here.
Did he not just receive the information today?
This is at the same time that this just came within today or yesterday, the financing stuff. It's all coming together. Mitch has been working with the Parks Committee. This Parks Committee's deals have been going on for months. If you've had questions, his door's open. And have you had any council member come in, Mitch, and talk to you and ask you the status of the pool up to this day?
And just generally speaking, you know, like what's schedules and things like that.
But this is being presented tonight to start the discussion with. There's a series of many meetings that we come forward to decide. You've got the ability to go home, look over it, dive into it, think of options, come back again at another one, and I think it's 1 week from now or 2 weeks from now. When's the next meeting?
1 week.
1 week. And have some more discussion on it. Talk to some members of your district and members of the public and bring back forth some ideas. questions, comments, concerns, things you want Mitch to look at for next time? If none, anything else to add, Mitch?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to work on this.
If there's nothing else, we're adjourned.